from victims to empowered creators. Victim mode mentality and the way out of it. To define the basics of our perception that results in our identity, we can use the story from the Native American culture about the two wolves. An old Cherokee is teaching his grandson about life. "A fight is going on inside me," he said to the boy, "and it's between the two wolves. One is evil and angry, arrogant with false pride and ego. The other is good, joyful, peaceful, full of love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, empathy, generosity, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you, and inside every other person too." The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf will win?" The old Cherokee simply replied, "The one you feed." We are what we repeat. The pattern of behavior that we're focusing our energy on is the one that will ultimately prevail in expressing itself. We're here and we are now, in this moment, aware that we are aware. Many of us are inclined to perceive life as an imposed reality that we are helpless victims of. If we believe this reality is fixed, unchangeable, that we are somehow a fixed entity, we're going to inevitably trip into narration of ourselves as utterly helpless. It's easy to do so. Many of us can easily end up caught in this created symbolic perception, the victim mode. There are up to 100,000 thoughts on any given day, and not any of them is lasting longer than 7 seconds. Which one of those thoughts are we? Memories proven to be fragmented, unreliable, and subjective in nature. There are countless memories we are able to access. Which one of those memories are we? With each passing minute, each one of us will have shed over 40,000 skin cells. 100 million cells in our body will die and be replaced. Our nerve impulses will fire 10,000 times, and we will experience about 70 heartbeats and over 10 breaths. 25,000 protein-coding genes made from about 3 billion base pairs carry out the processes of replication, transcription, and translation within each of the 75 trillion cells of the body. In the meantime, 100 trillion synapses in the brain flawlessly orchestrate our complete reality. And finally, research shows that only 10% of our body is based on our genes. For every one of the cells that make up the vessel that we call our body, there are 9 cells of different microbes that we're completely dependent upon. So what exactly are we? We are changing from moment to moment. So, with which moment in time do we identify ourselves? We are now beginning to understand that perception is a key component that moves us away from fear and in the direction of flow. Explained through neuroscience, we're caught up in the so-called default mode network, where the negative self-talk, fear, and isolation are dominant. Perception is fixed. We don't experience any real power to change our feelings and actions. With techniques leading to a more calm mental state, we are able to tap into task-oriented network, where new ideas emerge into existence. We're operating on a more fluid level, where we feel we are just able to change anything. The victim mode is embedded into our society at its very core. While this is reflected also in many solutions and practices that try to alleviate it. Where focus goes, energy flows. We cannot hide our own Easter eggs and pretend like we don't know where they are. The same goes with dealing with our psyche. We can't hide anything from it. Brain remembers everything without judgment. All is there, all the experience, always. Giving too much importance to the past experience pulls us away from the present moment and immediate future, while we recreate victim circumstances around ourselves to keep us within the same learned helplessness. All this just creates more loops of internalized victim self-narration that become stronger and stronger until it takes over as a core of our identity. For every action that we would take, there are numbers of competing patterns of behavior in our brain that want to emerge based on which one was repeated more. The more repeated one emerges as a habit. and becomes the most usual, most frequent response. We may also consider memory as simply as the energy that once took its path. Each time we remember it, it becomes more vivid and complex. Through time, it builds on itself and becomes a full-blown identity anchor. Each time we relive the moment and let it influence our present experience, we are limiting ourselves to that particular victim's storyline until it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's crucial to understand that all memories are experienced in the light of the overall mental and physical state we are currently in, since our perception changes even from moment to moment. So seeing it as a reconstructed experience gives us a clearer view and empowerment to be able to see it for what it was, and it gives us a clear insight on where to start. It's about the perception change, a change of how we view ourselves, and in this way be able to gain access to our authentic expression. Getting access to our programmer's back end from which we gain the ability to narrate our own story. Instead of spending a lifetime identifying with our minds in all possible ways, we should keep it simple and use it as a clear-cut tool for navigating reality and not something to identify with. In order to move from victim to creator mode, we need to change what we identify with. It is that simple. Research has also shown that we may find ourselves in the victim mode not so much because of our past, but rather because we are unable to foresee a positive and joyous future, a future we would be looking forward to. This is the point where we begin to understand that we have the power to alter our perception. The optimal solution set forth through years of research in positive psychology and neuroscience is in building a new self by focusing on what we want to become, rather than fixating on what we don't want to be. Now it becomes more of an experience of a joyous self-creation. What we think we become, what we feel we attract. Living as a creator takes into account the fact that we have the power to manage the basics of our perception. This is not denial. This is not an escape, but an opportunity to use the gift of being aware of our own existence into our own hands and leap towards the next step in our evolution.